In 300 to 500 words, I was supposed to answer the following questions via video or written essay. I've chosen to do so through a video, obviously. The questions are: how did you choose your major? What obstacles have you had to overcome? And what will it mean to you to graduate with this degree? Obviously, this is a very personal thing for me. I didn't originally go to Southern Connecticut State University. I used to go to a college up in Massachusetts. I went to Western New England College. I believe they're actually a university now, WNEU now, but I was with them right before they became a university. And originally I was there for pre-pharmacy. My grandfather was a pharmacist, and I was supposed to take after his footsteps. I went up there. I had a good handle on biology. I did have a good handle on chemistry. It just wasn't something I wanted to do in my life. I could have done it. I would have made a lot of money doing so. And I just couldn't see myself behind a counter at CVS or in a laboratory for the rest of my life. That's not something I want to do. I want to work with kids. I want to work with families. I like seeing people learn. And that's what I ended up doing when I was at Western. I stopped really focusing on my projects for my classes. Not to say I blew them off, but I was spending my time actually teaching for a few of the history classes as electives because I was in pre-pharmacy. I would help kids study for that, and then I actually knew a bit about the bio, so I'd do well on the tests, and I'd help other people do well on them as well. And I found it was the aspect of teaching that I enjoyed the most. I had to overcome a good amount of obstacles to do this. I had to basically devastate my grandfather. I had to tell my family basically everything they were pushing me to do I did not want to do. So I had to basically take my entire family's prodigy plan for me and tell them this is what I want to do with my life. I also, for a while, went to Air Force ROTC. Not to say I was the best, but I definitely learned a few things from there. I never completed the program due to GPA purposes and due to transferring to another region. That was never able to completely factor through. And now I'm over at Southern Connecticut State University with a 3.34, I believe, GPA overall. Not only am I a full-time student, but I also work a 40-hour work week. So I work 40 hours a week, and I also do full-time school. That being said, it's difficult to keep my GPA, but this is what I want to do. I remember when I was doing observations, and I had to do it for EDU 201, Dr. Stephen Greengross. And I'm not going to drop names, but there were two schools I went to. One of them was an elementary school, and one of them was a high school, a secondary ed school. And the teacher at the primary education at the lower level, actually, no, I apologize. It was not an elementary school. It was a middle school, but it had kindergarten through 6th grade. So it was, no, kindergarten through 8th grade. My apologies. I'm really messing this up now. But it was kindergarten through 8th grade. And the teacher I had to do observations for was a recent graduate. She was teaching, and she was quitting. She discovered that's not what she wanted to do with her life. After she spent all this money going to college, she decided she did not want to work with children in that capacity. That was shocking to me. Being told that my major choice was wrong and that I should get out while I'm ahead. And I would say to them, my first major choice was wrong. The amount of money that I personally have to take care of myself, I'll live within that means. If that means I can be happy doing what I want to do. It doesn't mean I might just have a Jeep, or I might have a lower-end car. I'm not saying Jeep's a lower-end car, but I might have a lower-end car. I may not be able to afford to go out to fancy restaurants every other week, but it's what makes you feel good doing what you're doing. And I love seeing people go from having no idea what you're talking about to making basically a framework, and then being able to understand it and put it into perspective, and all that is just a wonderful feeling. As far as other obstacles, not really sure what I could say there. I just work hard. Most of my check goes to family and taking care of what I have to do at home. I'm not a college boy going out partying with his money. And that's why I'm filling out this scholarship thing, hoping that you guys will take a look at this video and want to know more. I'm not saying this is a grade A video. I mean, I'm in my computer room. There's my printer. And there's my dad's degrees and whatnot. And then here's a couple of the books I'm reading. It's about British colonization. Where's the camera? Well, At the Edge of Empire. It goes from the British Empire's expansion for about 200 years, and it goes from Ireland to the New World, basically. Little Book of Warfare, another one of those great books. See if I can find one for you real quick. I don't want to do World War II, that's too... I want to go far back. There we go. Alicia Gall. I don't know if you can see the picture, but Double-Sided Siege. I don't know if that popped up for you there. Long and the short of it, it was Caesar's advance into Gaul, and it was his final major battle against the warlord Vercingetorix, and how he was surrounded by a larger force, and he had a smaller force entrapped, and used his ability to maneuver his men to not only take out the town and make them surrender, but to completely decimate this army that was outside his gates. And it's from that funding that he was able to fund politicians back in Rome, and from his network connections with Crassus from his first triumvirate, that he was part of. He was able to manipulate the Senate. He was able to, using Clementia, he was able to go back into Rome after crossing the Rubicon. And it's from this that he would eventually defeat Pompey, and would give rise to the second triumvirate of Mark Antony, who was Caesar's right-hand man, Octavian, who was Caesar's declared son, even though he wasn't technically a son, and Lepidus. Lepidus was the third one, who controlled forces in the, I want to say west, because Mark Antony got the east, Lepidus got the west, and Octavian got Rome. And they got a few other battles in here, but I don't want to bore you to death. But, well, not bore you to death. I don't want to just babble on, really, because you've got a lot of videos. Let's see if I can find it. Yep, here. Last book I'm reading, just real quick. Roll Me Over. It's about a guy named Raymond Gantier. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right. I wish I did know. But it's his story as a replacement towards the end of World War II, and his movement across Europe, how he basically went from a supply depot to the Battle of the Bulge pretty much overnight. And even though he spent a long time in the depot, it was the waiting, the muck, the sand, the dirt, the mud, not the sand, but you know what I'm trying to say, I hope. The muck was about 5, maybe even 6 inches deep. That's past your ankle. And to feel that every night, in the cold, in the sweat, and the damp and sharing a little, not even you couldn't even call it a little, I'm trying to think of the word, I don't want to say hut, but sharing, not even, it's not a tent, it's more of a, it's not a manhole either. It was kind of like a half tent. It covered the core of them, and sometimes they would get caught a little bit outside of it. So it was an outer bed, kind of. They had to squeeze themselves in there. It's an interesting book, and I have a whole bunch of books like this that I enjoy. I did like chemistry, and I did like biology, and I did like all that. I just couldn't do that in my life. So, just to recap, I chose my major because this is what I want to do. I want to share all these cool stories, and I want to share our past. I mean, it might not be my past, and it might be your past, but the collective history of us is pretty amazing. As far as obstacles, I had to overcome telling my family that I was going to no longer be that prodigy that they so desperately wanted me to be. And from that, I took a job, and if I did not receive family support, I was well on my own way to paying for college myself, but it would have been difficult, and it still is difficult. That's why I'm filling out a scholarship. And what I mean to graduate with this? I'd have a lifetime of making people awe and be amazed. The feeling of knowing that you are providing someone with something they've never heard before, and the amount of focus they're giving you, and just knowing you've made an impact on them, even if the story has nothing to do with what you're even talking about. Kids like to wrap up stories and make everything about them. So that Vercingetorix and Caesar battle, correct? In my little book of warfare here. Yeah, a kid would hear that story. Maybe he's on a sports team. Maybe he thinks about, maybe thought crosses his mind, maybe he was on the bench on the high school football team or high school soccer team, whatever have you. And he's learned something, and he's been able to adapt and apply it to his life in a positive way. And that makes me smile. Way more than cutting up pills ever could, or way more than telling somebody, here's your dose of Xanax, or here's your dose of Valium, or here's your dose of whatever, Adderall. I mean, you're making an impact there too, but you don't see it. You feel like, the feeling I get from it, not trying to offend pharmacists, is I feel like I am at the number 2 window of a medical fast food restaurant. And I don't want to do that, no matter how much they pay me. Find reward in what I do and not how much I make doing it. Thank you for your time.